I grew up on a farm about 3 hours south of Saskatoon near the town of Gravelbourg. And my mother was a teacher and my father was a farmer. And I learned very early from him a deep love for the land. He died when I was still quite young, but one of my early memories was him holding farmland and letting it run through his fingers. And he obviously took a great delight in the fact that his livelihood came from the earth. And so with all my family members, we have a deep love for the land and for the created world.
It's through this latest generation, they're for the first time beginning to realize that their life may not be as good as their parents' life, both in terms of the integrity of the earth, the opportunities available to them. And that's a very profound place to be. It's a very scary place to be. And I think they understand we have to do things differently in the future, if in fact there will be a future worth inheriting.
So it's got to come through the pulpit, it's got to come through local action, and there are all kinds of alternatives, but even there, the pastors have to become aware of them so that they can promote them.
When the priests are able to speak about it as a common concern, then we can start some real action. And we're not there yet.
The document is entitled Building a New Culture. Each one of us is responsible for doing our part to build up this culture, which must be a culture of life in every sense of the word. As Catholics, we do see environmental issues as life issues in a very real way. In producing this document, we made the decision not to deal with the specific environmental issues or controversies which face us today in our country and in our world, but rather to identify the guiding principles which can shape our response to those issues. Our hope and intent was to empower and strongly encourage the people of God to become informed about these issues and to be guided by our Holy Father, Pope Francis, who tells us, when facing environmental challenges today, there exists a clear, definitive, and unpostponable ethical imperative to act. Building a new culture, it means that we are in a covenantal relationship with the created world, and we're called to care for that world, to make decisions with that environment in mind, with the earth in mind, with future generations in mind. Pope Francis wants us to be in the conversation about the world, about the church, about poverty, about struggles, about the environment. He has an openness to others, which comes out of his Jesuit Ignatian tradition, the recognition that God is present, that we look for God in all places. And so he looks for traces of God's presence
I developed a program called Village Earth, which was at first a field education program out of Regis College, where students would come here and do some learning. I would say 2/3 of the people taking the program have felt disillusioned or separate from their faith, and having a love of the earth and creation and not knowing that they could be connected. And so this for them becomes a homecoming. And they're also beginning to learn that we are one in a very profound way. It's one of the ways of healing.
I am currently enrolled in the Elliott Allen Institute for Theology and Ecology. I now also work with an organization called Cape Farewell, which brings artists and scientists together to consider climate change as a cultural issue. Cape Farewell is the southern point of Greenland, so it is the southernmost access point to the Arctic, and it was the place that the first expedition of Cape Farewell artists and scientists went to really explore the issue of climate change. Now there is a great body of artwork out of Cape Farewell that deals with images from the Arctic and science from the Arctic, so things like measuring the ice to measure the speed at which the climate is changing, those kinds of things.
In addition to being a wonderful parish for the community of faith that worships here at St. Gabriel's, it's also a place where many, many people outside the parish come for tours. Come on in. To learn about sustainable design. A service out in the, or a presentation.
It's the first time that a cathedral has solar panels embedded in stained glass windows. And I think part of the beauty of it is bringing together art, a magnificent piece of art, technology at the service of the environment, and faith.
Our liturgical actions at Eucharist don't just remain in the chapel. They flow out from the chapel. We are sent forth to minister to others after we are nourished at the table of the Lord. And so people are encouraged to continue being a presence of Christ in their daily life and ministering to the broader community in some way.
As bishops, we wanted to speak to the whole people of God. There are documents that are written particularly for pastors, but I think our aim was to speak to all people, all Catholics at this point in time, and to encourage their involvement on environmental issues, to give them as much resource as we could to do so. We were trying to communicate not only a sense of urgency, but a moral imperative to engage in environmental issues. A moral imperative which arises from the scriptures, from divine revelation, from God's authorship of creation, which is consistent with Catholic teaching, with recent social teaching, and in a very specific way with the statements of recent popes who have been very articulate in addressing environmental issues and have really given us a gift and summoned us to be engaged in issues pertaining to the environment.